May take some heat for this one, but that's what we do here on the channel. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to another DBGTX edition of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot discussion. And today we have, yes, the biggest topic in Kakarot, the biggest debate, the biggest reservation, the reason why nobody wants to purchase this game per folks who just don't pay attention / people who feel like they're getting ripped off for reason A or reason B. It's a lot to mention in this particular video. My opinion in regards to the telltale of it's the same game. Why are you wasting money? They should have given us something new. So here's why. Reason one, we're not going to get any Dragon Ball Z game starting off in, or Dragon Ball period, any Dragon Ball game starting off in a different arc. The reason why is because in the United States and Canada and a lot of parts of Mexico and some parts of Europe, the first thing they got in regards to Dragon Ball related content was Dragon Ball Z. You have to understand that this game is playing on the heartbeat and the strings of nostalgia for those who are buying the game. So when you're first introduced to something and that makes such an impact on you as a kid, and that's the thing that stays in your head as a kid all the way into your adulthood, like, yes, you personally will go back and revisit Dragon Ball because you want more. So you'll go back and see Dragon Ball. You'll go back and watch Dragon Ball GT, at the time, so on and so forth. It doesn't change the fact that your introduction to the series was Dragon Ball Z. So because of that, because the majority of things outside of Japan were Dragon Ball Z related, that makes a huge impact on the starting point as far as any sale of merchandising, let alone game. If you look at merchandise sales online in Japan, currently right now, the Dragon Ball Z series merchandises, figures, action figures, all that, Dragon Ball Super, because Dragon Ball Super and Z are basically in the same timeline in that sense, in that regard, so it's considered Z, or part of Z. Because of that, or a separate, or an extension of Z, the way you want to explain that. Anyway, the bottom line is that because if you look at the sales, you will see and notice that the Dragon Ball Z action figures and such, all the merchandise for Dragon Ball Z items, super items, supersede and oversells pretty much almost every other type of action figures as far as DB related action figures. So Dragon Ball action figures don't sell as much. Dragon Ball GT action figures don't sell as much. Dragon Ball Z figures sell a lot. Simple layman's term. So that's reason number one. Merchandising alongside the gaming factor. Playing on the nostalgia, playing on the merchandising, playing on what's going to bring the majority of people back to play it. Even if you are pissed off at them using the Z as the entry point, you will still end up buying the game just to test it out because you're a fan. The majority of people are like that. It's the same concept as Pokemon. We have 8 generations of Pokemon. The only difference between them, of course, is that you get a new batch of Pokemon every generation and stuff like that. But as far as what you're doing, you do the exact same thing. You collect 8 badges, you go to the Johto League or whatever it is, or you go to the Indigo Plateau, the Pokemon League, you beat the Pokemon League, game over. Same stuff. So Do they change the concept of Pokemon? They add a little bit of sauce here by changing this and that, but they don't really change the concept completely. It's still the same thing. Catch them all. Catch Pokemon, train them, raise them, breed them, until you collect them all in the Pokédex, trade them, etc. So, at the end of the day, if your argument is why they chose Z, that is one of the biggest factors. Is the Pokemon effect, is the nostalgia, which means that it plays on the nostalgia, and it plays on the portion that a lot of people know that particular title and merchandising over the other. Now, the second point, and the most important point, is that by introducing a whole new story, and this is for the people who keep saying, why don't you come up with a new story, why don't so on and so forth. The issue is that coming up with a new story with such a grand story itself will have to be self-contained and not canon to anything related to Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super. The biggest problem with that is simple. Very simple. We got too many meatheads and Dragon Ball purists who will hate certain logics that the company, the developers will take, because they'll be like, that doesn't apply to the real Dragon Ball, or this is not canon. There's the purists who say things like that, or why would Goku do this, or why would they do that, or people who don't like to break outside of the original merchandise or the original story. Those people who never bought Xenoverse for that reason. Those kind of things like that, for example, those things are the second biggest factor as to why the company will play it safe and start off with Z. It just makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Why? Because you will be playing at 78% to 82% of your market. As far as, yeah, we know the series. Yes, of course. We love the series, though. It's iconic. It's better than the majority of them. And do we take a gamble and a chance with some brand new story, and we can end up dropping the ball because either A, the story is not good enough, people want to compare it to Z, people want to do X, Y, and Z to not, if it makes any sense. So that's another big reason, and the second factor as to why making a new story off the bat doesn't apply to this, and why starting off with the Z arc make way more sense. And not just in Dragon Ball Kakarot, but any Dragon Ball game that comes out, that is the biggest reason as to why the Z arc is usually the starting point. The final reason has to do with the younger generation. The younger generation of Dragon Ball fans don't go back and watch the older content. So you're not going to get that. You're not going to have a lot of them knowing about Little Goku or King Piccolo or Grandpa Gohan or the importance of Yajirobe, or what was the importance of Yamcha at one point. Everybody sees Yamcha as a meme, but Yamcha, even though he was still canon fodder in Dragon Ball, he actually had a role, in the cast. So things like that is what people don't do. People don't go back nowadays. The younger generation doesn't go back and watch the older content. So imagine starting off with Little Goku and playing all the way through the Piccolo, the King Piccolo arc, and the tournament stage art, all that stuff, and you do all that as the first vanilla entry of the game. yes, us Dragon Ball purists, the people who've been waiting for a Dragon Ball game, the old school Dragon Ballers, you name it, we would be ecstatic. And to be honest, we would push the out of that content. Like we would do it because we love it. We want that. But then the new generation, anywhere from ages 15 and down, are gonna be like, huh? Ooh, what's this story about? Which goes back to my second part. If you don't know the story, you have questions, and then you probably are going to try to get your answers online instead of either A, playing the game, or B, reading the manga or watching the anime itself. So it goes to show that it comes down to the two reasons that I mentioned before as the third reason. The younger generation of gamers are not so invested into playing a Dragon Ball game because they don't know the story as well, nor do they want to go ahead and have to do homework for that. So Dragon Ball Z Kai being so fresh in the series, it's in the heart and mind of every kid, period. Almost every kid that I know that's from age 4 to the age of 16 knows Dragon Ball Z or knows Dragon Ball Z Kai. They watch it on TV and all that good stuff. That's all applied. But if you ask them, do you know about Little Goku? Do you know about, when Master? They don't know that. So the developers are not going to stress their consumers with that by starting the game off at that point. That's really where it's at. Other people say why they didn't start on Super. It goes back to part 2. More people like Dragon Ball Z over Super and think that that Super screwed up a lot of the story due to how Super the production was. Let's put it like that. Due to that, I know you could come up with your own story and make it a bit more cohesive and better than what we've got for the first few arcs, but at the end of the day, Dragon Ball Super isn't the more iconic series, so they're gonna stick to that, to again what people know, what people understand, and what the majority know and love and whatnot. And then they could expand from that. If they want to go back, they can go back, and people will like that, and people will love it and talk about it and see the reaction of the crowd. If they get a good reaction from a Dragon Ball arc DLC, they may just make a Dragon Ball game that includes everything from Dragon Ball through Dragon Ball Super instead of just Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super. Who knows? But that is all. That's all we have here today. That is the 3 major points as to why gaming developers that hold the Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super titles always start off on the Dragon Ball Z title mark and never usually start off in any other point or make their own new story. It has to do with how the game, how the title itself was released back in the day, which started off with Dragon Ball Z, so everybody knows Dragon Ball Z over everything else. At that point, the world was introduced to Dragon Ball Z versus Dragon Ball. The second point is, again, like I mentioned, is the fact that taking a gamble with a new story can go ahead and upset the Dragon Ball fandom if the story has to be self-contained / has nothing to do with the main story. The non-canon versus canon thing and all that debate can cause sales to drop, of course, and people not wanting to buy the game. It could do the opposite effect, but they don't want to take the chance, so they went safe for that in that route. And third and foremost is that the younger generation doesn't know Dragon Ball also, and due to Dragon Ball Z Kai, they're more well versed in Dragon Ball Z Kai and Dragon Ball Super, which is the thing that's been airing the most, but they don't do their homework to go back to do the Dragon Ball era, whether it's because the animation is too old or they just don't want to, and you have to respect that. Those reasons come together into every major Dragon Ball Z title starting off at the Dragon Ball Z era, or any Dragon Ball title starting off in the Z era / having to do with the Z era, because the most well-known one and the easiest one to make money off of, not just by recognition but also by popularity and of course by overall better story. Those things combined causes for the safe tent effect as a starting point, and any Dragon Ball Z game will always start off at Z due to the fact that it's a very good safe DNAT. That being said, I'll leave you guys there. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you got anything to say, leave it in the comment section. Y'all already know how we do. Let's talk about it. Holla at your boy. Peace out.